Hi, my name's Lan Snell. I'm from UTS Business School, and I'm so pleased to welcome Leah Callon Butler, who is the founder for Intimate.
Yeah, so to explain what Intimate is, it's a cryptocurrency that has been designed to address a lot of the problems that exist in the adult and sex tech industries. And it does that by facilitating payments as well as trust and reputation in order to make the industry a lot safer for everyone.
Leah, what is it about cryptocurrencies that you're so passionate about?
I actually got into crypto itself much later on. It was blockchain tech that really inspired me first. And that was where I saw how many different ideas that people were applying it to. But I wanted to find a place where it was fundamentally needed. That's when I came across adult, and I thought it was the way of the future. I'm passionate about this because I really feel that at this current stage, blockchain is an infantile, clunky technology with issues in scalability. We've got a lot of smart people working to try and solve those issues, but essentially it's going to take a really long time before we get to the Web 2.0 of blockchain, where we see the blockchain equivalent of things like eBay and Uber and PayPal all popping up all over the place. I think the best way to get there, though, is to actually choose a use case that will benefit from the concept of decentralization. A lot of people, I think, are rushing to apply blockchain because it's so hot right now. My co-founder, Ruben Copper, spent many years in blockchain consulting with large corporates and banks, even Commonwealth Bank, and he often laughs to say, in all my years of blockchain consulting, I never implemented a blockchain project because I was able to tell my clients that there were other technologies that exist already that will do what you want to achieve faster and much cheaper. So blockchain is an incredible innovation, but because it's such an early stage, we really need to find where it fits and where it can actually have benefit. That's how I became really interested in the idea of the adult industry, because it was an industry where I saw it was completely underserved and lacking diversity and innovation, because the corporate structures that were actually defining how this industry is controlled and how it operates every day, they're basically creating large barriers to entry so that we can't actually encourage new people to come in and reimagine what the space is about. That's where I thought the concept of decentralization actually would have a lot of benefit to empower people to create a peer-to-peer society where they're not governed by archaic, outdated guidelines and structures that don't really have anything to do with the way that they want to live their lives.
Leah, in your experience, can you just give us a brief overview of the challenges, the typical challenges that businesses might face with accessing finance?
Yeah, absolutely. There's what a lot of people don't understand about the adult and sex tech industries is that there is some incredible institutional bias which is imposed on entrepreneurs in this space. So to put it into perspective, if you were to attempt to launch a business in this space, you would find it incredibly difficult to get banked. The mainstream banking institutions flat out will not deal with any business that has anything to do with sex. You will, if you do find a bank that will look after you, it's probably a bank on the peripheral that will charge you exorbitant fees. You'll be used to having your account frozen at any given time. Payment gateways like PayPal and Stripe, they go by the same guidelines. They won't deal with you either. Platforms like Shopify, you won't be able to boost your ads on Facebook. Even for some property groups, for example, we work with a Japanese love hotel group that can't advertise on aggregator sites like bookings.com and lastminute.com. This all comes down to a moral bias against this industry, because let me reiterate that these are all legal, tax-paying businesses. But the banks don't want to deal with them because they see them as dirty and sleazy. What I would say, though, is that this is all very subjective. So if you're very good at being able to say to the bank, it's not a sex shop I want to open, it's a health and wellness store, you might be lucky enough to access services. Same thing, we just heard a story from someone the other day who started off their career working at NAB, and it was their job to apply those guidelines when businesses were applying for banking and merchant services. And they saw so many businesses get knocked back for access to services. But then someone else who had a multi-million-dollar property portfolio with the bank, and 80% was in property, but their other 20% was managing escort businesses, they were able to access services. So there's a serious issue here with bias that is preventing innovation in the industry because the barriers to entry are so high.
How do government interventions impact Intimate?
So anyone who's been watching the news lately would see that the world of regulation and how it applies to cryptocurrencies has been an absolute media frenzy. You've got everyone from Jamie Dimon saying that Bitcoin is a fraud, through to Commonwealth Bank and other banks completely banning credit card purchases of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. In the US, the SEC has been shutting down ICOs, or initial coin offerings, left, right and centre. And even South Korea, there's many governments out there who are just struggling to actually grapple with what's happening here, and essentially what they're seeing is a threat of this idea of cryptocurrency completely reimagining the way that we currently do business. What's interesting is that there are some governments who have been much more open-minded to this. They're taking a different approach where it's actually, rather than try to regulate this space, we're going to see the benefits of it and try to create an environment where perhaps we'll attract some of the best entrepreneurs within the world to create the new innovations that will define this new crazy world of cryptocurrency. Japan would be a good example of that. It's interesting, though, if you're actually launching a token sale in this space. That's what we're doing. I think you need to have a pretty high risk appetite, really, because there is no regulation in this space. One of the biggest challenges for us has been able to find a great legal team that can actually keep up with the pace that we're working, and also be able to operate in this interesting space where we understand that there are existing frameworks that currently govern the way that society works and the way that you would raise money. But this is a completely new paradigm, and I think what we're not seeing is enough people actually work towards this new economic paradigm that's required to actually understand what's happening in the token sales space. Really, this is pretty new. I mean, Bitcoin has only been around since 2009, so it hasn't really been that long. And if you think about it, this currency is coming up and completely reimagining the way that our world works. I mean, the idea to challenge the notion that we require a trusted intermediary to govern every aspect of our life, if you remove that, that's a completely foundational restructuring of our world. So I think what we're just seeing is a bit of storming and forming in the world where people are going, wow, this is really new. How do we handle this? How do we apply it? It's so different. What we need is visionaries that are going to push it forward and find real use cases to apply it.
So, Leah, people will make associations with adult industry, the sex adult industry. What would your response to be to what critics might say about that?
Yeah, the adult industry, I really think it is viewed through a very narrow lens point right now. People often say it's just a dirty, sleazy industry, that it's exploiting women, and we should have nothing to do with it, essentially. I take a different viewpoint. I fundamentally believe that sex is a part of everyone's lives. I have this thing that I'll say there's 3 languages in the world that everyone can speak, and that's music, food, and sex. If you look at something like music and food, we've commercialized those markets. So there is a plethora of different market segments to provide products and services that suit so many different people. I really think sex is the same, and there's so much shame and guilt and taboo in this society, which is causing really weird ripple effects. Sexuality is something that underpins everything from our identity to the way that we interact with other people and our relationships, our workplaces and gender equality. I feel if we can drive a more sex-positive conversation, which is inclusive and open and honest, this can lead to a much better future. If I can, I'd love to put that into context. So Intimate's definition of the adult industry is incredibly broad. So a lot of people think, oh, you must just deal with hardcore porn sites and escorting. We do, absolutely. They're people that would use our platform. But we also deal with people who run e-commerce sites that sell things like sex toys or intimate apparel, right through to a Japanese love hotel group, which is essentially just a hotel group that you can book rooms for a 30-minute or 1-hour increments. And right through to even things like there's an organisation called Women of Sex Tech in New York, and that's an organisation of women who have launched products and services within this industry. And it could be things like a sexual health and reproductive app that is designed to help women go through things like postnatal depression. And that gets chucked in the sex bucket. So I think that's what really surprises people when we talk about how rife the stigma is in this industry. It's really not just narrowed on some kind of hardcore space that people have in their mind. This goes right through to things like women's health. And the ripple effects of that is that we aren't seeing diversity in this space. If we can actually equal the playing field so that people can come in to create products and services that solve their own problems, I really believe that we're going to see whole new market segments open that will reimagine what sexuality means to different people. Until we can actually allow people to come in and play in this space like any other entrepreneur who accesses the kind of services that other people would take for granted, and then also do something to challenge the stigma that exists around sexuality, we're just not going to see any change. So that's what we're working to try and achieve every day.